Now, the 2020 Capitol riot, obviously, it's a complicated issue, but what we can say is this. Prior to the election, Trump was railing against all of these election changes and claiming they were trying to steal the election from him. And he was building this up for months. After he lost, he continued to propagate various conspiracy theories, and he did not concede. Now, what defenders will say is, look, they did make all of these changes because it was during COVID. They had more write ins, longer delays, all of these things. Okay. Trump was not saying these were unfair or there are potential anomalies in Pennsylvania. He was claiming things such as like Venezuelans used these machines to cheat against him, and there were millions of votes against him that just materialized out of nowhere. So he was not promoting a reasonable, rational arguments about what happened during the election and any particular malfeasance. Furthermore,
Sorry,
the
just to interrupt you.
yes,
Critics of the criticism of Trump will also say, look what happened in 2016. The Democrats spent several years going after Trump via this Russiagate conspiracy theory on the basis
right.
that they didn't consider him a legitimate president. And many of them openly said they didn't consider him a legitimate president. So isn't that isn't what Trump did no worse, at the very least?
I would say that Democrats behaved repugnantly after Trump won. Some did at least. And I think that there were behaviors that were outside of traditional American norms that were taken in effort to restrain what they saw as this unique threat to the system. And some of the efforts were probably rational in some sense. Like they are understandable, but they're still repugnant and you have to be careful that when you're fighting a monster, you don't become a monster, if indeed Trump's a monster, but whatever. Uh so yes, no, I think there are many legitimate complaints about what happened after Trump won. However, importantly, Hillary Clinton called Donald Trump to concede. Hillary Clinton gave a concession speech, and she attended the inaugural.
Hmm.
Donald Trump did not concede. In fact, he came out and said he was not going to concede. He continued not to concede. He never conceded, and he still maintains 2020 was stolen. Nobody who's looked into this has forwarded a serious case that the election was in fact stolen. What the more sophisticated defenders, or I would say apologists of Trump, will argue is, well, it was rigged because the entire mainstream media was also opposed to him. Now, on the one hand, I say that's just how politics works. I mean, corporations and media outlets have their preferred candidates, and obviously they're going to support them. So don't whine about that. Create your own institutions. That's the more flippant response. The more understanding response is yes, there was, for example, the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story. I think that's a serious problem, and there are legitimate complaints about that. That is not a stolen or rigged election, though, right? And the reason that rhetoric is so dangerous is because in a polarized democracy, the most important norm to preserve is the view that the election was fair and that you concede afterward. Because, of course, people's emotions are inflamed. They're angry after they lose an election and they don't want to believe they lost. It's hard to believe. I remember watching elections when my preferred candidate lost and just being shocked and in disbelief about it. Like, how could people have voted for this other party? And if the candidate got up and gave this rousing stem winder about how the election was stolen, when I was 18, I probably would have believed it, and I would have been like, "What is this perfidious treachery?"
Yeah.
So I think that is very dangerous to the point of disqualifying, honestly.